Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, good morning everyone. So today we're reading from Canto number 3, text chapter number 26, entitled The Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. And today we're reading from text number 4. Sa esha prakritim shukshma devim gunamayim vibhu yadrichayeva pogatam abhyapadyata leelaya. See if you can do it from memory. Shruti dhar. Sa esha prakritim shukshma devim gunamayim vibhu yadrichayeva pagatam abhyapadyata leelaya. Sa esha prakritim shukshma devim gunamayim vibhu yadichayeva pagatam abhyapadyata leelaya. Prakritim shukshma abhyapadyata leelaya.
Sa esha prakritim shukshma daivim gunamayim vibhu yadrichayeva pagatam abhyapadyata leelaya.
Sa esha prakritim sukshma daivim gunamayim vibhu
yadrichayeva pagatam abhyapadyata leelaya.
Sa esha prakritim sukshma
prakritim shukshma
yadrichayeva pagatam abhyapadyata leelaya.
Sa esha prakritim sukshma devim gunamayim vibhu yadrichayeva pagatam abhyapadyata leelaya.
Mataji. Vibhu Sa esha, that same Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prakritim, material energy. Shukshma, subtle. Devim, related to Vishnu. Gunamayim, invested with the three modes of material nature. Vibhu, the greatest of the great. Yadrichaya, of his own will. Iva, quite. Upagatam, obtained. Abhyapadyata, he accepted. Leelaya, as his pastime. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. As his pastime, that Supreme Personality of Godhead, the greatest of the great, accepted the subtle material energy which is invested with the three modes of material nature and which is related with Vishnu. Purport. In this verse, the word Gunamayim is very significant. Devim means the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Gunamayim means invested with the three modes of material nature. When the material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, this Gunamayim energy acts as a manifestation of the energies of the three modes. It acts as a covering. The energy emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests in two ways: as an emanation from the Supreme Lord and as a covering of the Lord's face. In Bhagavad Gita it is said because the whole world is illusioned by the three modes of material nature, the common conditioned soul being covered by such energy cannot see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The example of a cloud is very nicely given. All of a sudden there may appear a big cloud in the sky. This cloud is perceived in two ways. To the sun, the cloud is a creation of its energy, but to the ordinary common man in the conditioned state, it is a covering to the eyes. Because of the cloud, the sun cannot be seen. It is not that the sun is actually covered by the cloud, only the vision of the ordinary being is covered. Similarly, although Maya cannot cover the Supreme Lord who is beyond Maya, the material energy covers the ordinary living entities. Those conditioned souls who are covered are individual living entities, and he from whose energy Maya is created is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In another place in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, 7th chapter, it is stated that Vyasadeva, by his spiritual vision, saw the Supreme Lord and the material energy standing behind him. This indicates that the material energy cannot cover the Lord, just as darkness cannot cover the sun. Darkness can cover a jurisdiction which is very insignificant in comparison to that of the sun. Darkness can cover a small cave, but not the open sky. Similarly, the covering capacity of the material energy is limited and cannot act on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is therefore called Vibhu. As the appearance of a cloud is accepted by the sun, so the appearance of the material energy at a certain interval is accepted by the Lord. Although his material energy is utilized to create the material world, this does not mean that he is covered by that energy. Those who are covered by the material energy are called conditioned souls. The Lord accepts the material energy for his material pastimes in creation, maintenance, and dissolution. But the conditioned soul is covered. He cannot understand that beyond this material energy there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the cause of all causes. Just as a less intelligent person cannot understand that beyond the covering of the clouds there is bright sunshine. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishram Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this section of the Bhagavatam is Kapila Dev describing Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya is very, very interesting. It's the idea of breaking things down in order to develop a detachment. It's very, very scientific. Like say for example, if you are attracted to, I don't know, like a cake for example, it looks very, very nice. So one way to develop detachment of the cake is what you do is you disassemble the cake into all its individual ingredients. So on one side you have a cake, and then on the other side you have like a pack of sugar, some milk, some other raw ingredients, some nuts. And then when you look at both things side by side, realizing they're the same thing, then when you look at all of the thing in its separate parts, then it doesn't hold the same type of attraction. And so the idea of Sankhya is to help us break down all of the things that we're attracted to and show us that actually what they're made of is just these individual ingredients and there's nothing to be attracted by it. Of course, even Shankaracharya said that when he sees the form of the opposite gender, then he breaks it down as to what it actually is. And then he says, and then I realized that, well, what am I so attracted to? But because we see a finished product which is polished in a certain way, it becomes very, very attractive. So the idea of Sankhya is to constantly break it down. Break down the charm of something, and then you see, yeah, not so interesting anymore, not so attractive really at all. So unless this detachment is coming, so Sankhya begins with detachment and then it matures in devotion. But detachment and devotion have to kind of go side by side. Vairagya vidya, nija bhakti yoga. Therefore Mahaprabhu, he also came to teach vairagya and vidya, detachment and knowledge. If you are detached from Krishna and attached to matter, then what are you? A karmi. You're basically a karmi, a materialist. If you're detached from Krishna and detached from matter, what are you then? A Mayavadi, right. If you're attached to Krishna and you're attached to Maya, then what are you?
Sahajya.
Yeah, you could say Sahajya, could be. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're Mishra Bhakta, a mixed devotee. But the skeptical would say Sahajya. And then if you're attached to Krishna but detached from matter, then what are you? Yeah, you're Shuddha Bhakta, Anya, Abhilashita, shunyam, no other extraneous desires. So without this detachment, it doesn't really work. Bhogeshvarya prashaktanam taya parita chetasham vyavasayatmika buddhi samado nuvidhiyate. So Krishna says that one who is attached to enjoyment and opulence, the resolute determination for devotional service doesn't take place. So the whole idea of Sankhya is to break down the material world and engender a detachment from everything. And here in breaking down the material world, today we're hearing that Maya is accepted by the Lord and utilized by the Lord and engaged by the Lord. Maya is obviously coming from the Lord. Krishna says, Mama Maya Duratyaya. It's a Devi Prakriti. Although it's a material energy, it's a Devi Prakriti because it's coming from the Supreme Person. But because it's a creation of the Supreme Person, Srila Prabhupada is clarifying, it can never cover the Supreme Person. How can the creation of something be greater than that which created it? But what the Maya does is she doesn't cover the Supreme Lord, she covers the conditioned living entity. Therefore sometimes Srila Prabhupada gave the example, if you have a 1 penny coin, then if you put that 1 penny coin close enough to your eyes, then it will cover the sun. In other words, the closer you are to Maya, the more Krishna will be covered. And like this, in the Vallabha Sampradaya, they have a metaphor that when there's a fisherman, and a fisherman casts out his net, then all the fish get caught except the fish that are swimming, not just deep, but also next to the fisherman's foot. Because the net goes out, but if you're close to the foot of the fisherman, then you will never get caught by that net. So those who are close to Krishna, then they don't get struck down by Maya. But the moment you turn away from Krishna, Krishna bahir mukha hoya bhogavan chakare nikata stamaya tore jhapatiya dhare. Nikate is even in Gora Arati we sing, isn't it? Nikate Advaita Shrini. Close by is Srinivas, and he's holding an umbrella, Vasa Shatra Dhara. So Nikate means close by. So in this verse it's explained, Krishna Bahir Mukha, whenever you look away from Krishna, or your Bhogavan Chakara, and you try to enjoy in this world, Nikata star, standing, situated, close by, Maya Tore, Maya is there, Jhapatiya Dhare, and then that Maya strikes down the living entity. So yes, Maya is covering everyone. What is the hope? The only hope is the Shastra. Maya Mukdha Jivara Nahi Swata Krishna Gyan Jivare Kripaya Koile Krishna Veda Puran. Maya Mugdha, the whole world is bewildered by Maya. Swata Krishna Gyan, and the only way that they can awaken knowledge of Krishna, Jivare Kripaya, is because the Lord bestowed His mercy on all the Jivas. Koile Krishna Veda Puran, because Krishna created the Vedas, the Puranas and the Shastra, which basically give one the opportunity to understand the predicament that they're in. So yes, here Srila Prabhupada says Maya covers people so that they cannot see Krishna, so that they disbelieve in Krishna. Therefore you find there are so many varieties of atheists in the world. I counted 6 types of atheists. You can tell me whether there's more. The first type of atheist is a default atheist. They're the ones who haven't even thought about it. They're the ones who haven't even explored whether God may exist. They're not even interested. Maya's trick on them is distraction. Maya keeps them so busy doing things in the material world, chasing things in the material world, so preoccupied with the things of this world that they don't have the time, energy or interest to look anywhere else. It's not that they've made a conscious choice not to believe in God, they're just too busy or too preoccupied to think about it. I would say that's probably one of the biggest categories, default atheist. Then I say the second class of atheist is the philosophical atheist. The one who actually thought about it and came up with a theory to basically take God out of the picture. It's interesting, Krishna says, Maya Parita Gyan. These people are the most intelligent, but also they become the most, stupid. Because they miss, there's a saying in English, they miss the wood for the trees, or they miss the forest for the trees. They look at something so closely, and they analyze it so closely, that they actually miss the bigger picture. There's this funny story of Sherlock Holmes and Watson. You know Sherlock, that's British, right? You know Sherlock Holmes? You know Sherlock Holmes and Watson. So one time they went camping. So for the night, then they went to sleep in their tent. And in the middle of the night, they were sleeping next to each other, and then both of their eyes opened. So they were lying down and they were looking up. And Watson said because Watson was like a famous detective type person, and Sherlock was as well. So Watson said to Sherlock, "What do you see?" So they were looking up, and Sherlock said, "I see that astrologically there are many galaxies and many, many planets." He said, astronomically or astrologically, I see that Leo is in Saturn. He said, horologically, I'm looking at the skies and I'm seeing that tomorrow will be just under 20 degrees Celsius. And then he looks at Watson and he says, what do you see? And Watson says, you idiot, I see that someone has stolen our tent. So it's very interesting because sometimes you can analyze something so deeply that you miss the most obvious truth. So this is basically what people do in the material world. They study, and then they become philosophical atheists. They decide there's nothing there when it's completely obvious. So the second type of atheist is a philosophical atheist. Krishna's energy, Maya, covers them by Maya Parita Gyan, by misdirecting their intelligence and turning their intelligence against them to actually make them disbelieve in God. The third type of atheist is an emotional atheist. They're the ones who, they don't necessarily philosophically, so convinced, but they just have a problem with God. They have an issue. Maybe something bad happened to them in their life, or maybe they had a terrible experience in a religious movement, but they have some animosity against God. And Maya basically makes them disbelieve in God by basically just bewildering them through all these overwhelming emotions, through anger. Emotional atheists tend to be very angry people. And what does Krishna say? Krodhat bhavati sammoha. From anger comes delusion. They had this person in the world, right? Richard Dawkins. Do you remember him? He wrote that book, The God Delusion. So for quite some years, like 5 years, he went on this whole campaign. They would put adverts on the buses, like there probably is no God, therefore just have a good time. It's like he was on this campaign that there's no God. And if you think about it, it makes no sense. Because if everything's matter, then nothing matters. So why are you on such a big campaign to convince the world that God doesn't exist, if anyway it's all meaningless anyway? If it's all meaningless, if we came from nothing, if we are nothing, and if nothing happens at the end, then you shouldn't be worried about anything either, because it's all meaningless. So why are you so enthusiastic? Why are you so eager? Why are you so insistent to convince the world, working so hard to convince the world that God doesn't exist, when it's all meaningless anyway? Clearly, he has an issue. Clearly, he has some emotional block. Clearly, he has some pent-up anger against God. But anger against God means you believe in God. It's funny, to be angry against God, you have to believe in God. So deep within even the emotional atheist psychology is a belief of God against God. So the other type of atheist is an emotional atheist. Srila Prabhupada said the fourth type of atheist is a covered atheist. Because God is here and we are here. And basically what atheists, the traditional atheist, brings God down. And they say, no, there's no one up there, bring everyone down. We're all just material. So the traditional atheist brings God down. So then there's no distinction between us and God. But what the covered atheist does is they create an atheism undercover. Because what they do is, God is here, we're here, but then they say, no, we're all God. So basically they don't say we disbelieve in God, but they make everyone God. But the net result of making everyone God is you remove the distinction, and whether you remove the distinction here or you remove the distinction here, the net result is the same thing. It's still atheism. So therefore Prabhupada revealed to the world something which maybe people had not revealed before, that Mayavadis are covered atheists. How can you call me an atheist? Yes, you are an atheist because you took the distinction out. And that's basically tantamount to atheism. The fifth type of atheist is the psychological atheist. They're the ones who say they believe in God. They're the ones who talk even about God. They're the ones who sometimes even glorify God and try to convince others about God. But in their own life, Maya covers them so that even they're trying to take God out of the picture and be at the center. And maybe, just maybe, we might find a little bit of the psychological atheist within ourselves. Yes, maybe. Once I was at someone's home, and there was a beautiful picture like this of Krishna Balaram. So for about 1.5 hours I was chanting back and forth in front of this beautiful picture of Krishna Balaram. And after 1.5 hours I got the realization that every time I was walking towards the picture of Krishna Balaram, instead of seeing Krishna Balaram, I was looking at my own reflection in the glass of the picture. And it was a moment in which I realized, oh my God, you can actually be in front of Krishna and be completely self-absorbed. And that is actually very, very scary. So, yes, psychological atheist is also there. Yeah, maybe that's the biggest one. Those who say they believe in God but then are constantly taking Krishna out. There's one more type of atheist. Well, maybe not strictly an atheist, or you could make an argument for it. Any idea what the final type of atheist could be? You have a default atheist, a philosophical atheist, an emotional atheist, a covered atheist, a psychological atheist, the final one could be a transcendental atheist. The ones in the spiritual world who get covered by yoga maya and then say, Krishna, you are not a big man, me and you are the same. You have to carry me home on your shoulders. And they become overcome by so much love, the sweetness of Madhurya, that they forget their Aishwarya. Of course, they're not complete atheists because they do worship Narayan, of course. But in the sense that they look at Krishna and they have no reverence towards him as God. No realization of his godliness because they're so overcome. So therefore, in one sense, this is Maya acting in a different way. So Maya, the energy of Maya basically acts in three different spheres, we could say broadly. In the spiritual world, Maya acts as yoga Maya to facilitate the pastimes. In the material world, Maya is the Tribir Gunamayi, Maya Dyakshena Prakriti, is the energy which creates this illusion. And then we can say the third function or realm of Maya is not just the spiritual world, not just the material world, but in the inner world of each living entity where they're being covered by Maya. And therefore the devotee is praying. Kunti prays, Maya Javanikachanam Agya Doksa Jamavyayam Nalakshya She Mudadrisha Nato Natya Dharo Yata. Krishna, remove your veil of Maya by which people cannot understand you. There's also a prayer like that, right? In the Ishopanishad. Hiran Mayena Patrena. Right. Right. Yes. So we're praying that Maya. So this Maya functions in different ways. Maya can never cover Krishna, but Maya covers the living entity to forget Krishna. And Maya uses that tricks to create atheism in different shapes and forms. And therefore we see here Prabhupada is paraphrasing the Gita verse. Tribir Gunamayi. Anyone know that verse? Tribir Gunamayi. Yes, that's the one. Yes. The whole world does not know me. Yeah. What is the number of that verse? 7:13. 7:13. Let's just read that very quickly, and then I'll just open it up. Because Prabhupada basically is paraphrasing that. Let's see, 7:15? 13. Deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. Yes, so here. Krishna is above the modes, inexhaustible, can never be covered. But Prabhupada is making the point that Maya covers the living entity and therefore becomes deluded, atheistic in various ways. Hare Krishna. Okay, maybe I'll stop there and see if there's some discussion points. Yeah. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I had one clarification question. In the third canto, especially in the Kapila Dev section, there's a lot of talk of the atheistic Kapila, who also was Sankhya, who also had a Sankhya philosophy. And would he, I've never read his philosophy, but would he be, if understanding that Sankhya is the idea of dividing things, would he be under the category of philosophical atheist?
Yeah, it's almost like, those who basically analyze all the elements and try to take divinity out of the picture. That's basically what modern academia, if you look at basically things like anthropology, say for example anthropology. So for example, they'll look at Srila Prabhupada, for example, and they'll say, now let's socially analyze how the Hare Krishna movement spread. Then what they'll say is, well, the first interesting fact is that Bhaktivedanta Swami was a pharmacist and he was good at business. So therefore he had some ability in expanding enterprise. And then let's look at the historical time. There were hippies and there was a counterculture going on, and therefore there was a move towards spirituality. And then there was this kind of celebrity who came on the picture who basically introduced this element. And now we can see, because of a conglomerate of all these elements, Hare Krishna spread throughout the world. But what they don't understand is Krishna Shakti Vinana He Tada Pravartan. That unless one is empowered by Krishna Shakti, it's not going to happen. So basically, that's basically what academia or anthropology or these kind of people do, is they break everything down and try to then basically also remove any spiritual element from the equation. And that's the atheistic Sankhya. Yeah.
I just had one follow-up question.
Yeah.
Was that you mentioned that the psychological atheist has, it may be actually in all of us. So in one sense, an argument can be made, unless we're pure devotees, if we're not at the level of pure devotion, then we all have some sense of atheism, because we don't fully understand the greatness of Krishna and we don't fully worship Krishna. Is that the correct line of thinking?
Yeah, to some extent, we are all moving into atheistic tendencies, in and out of it, because the moment you take Krishna out of the picture, then you're denying that supreme reality. And so yes, we can say to some extent all of us are having, but we don't call ourselves an atheist, because the general direction of our life is to factor that in. But still we can say we have psychological remnants of atheism. Yeah.
Yeah, I can comment on that. Mahosa used to tell people, they said, "No, I don't want those books, I'm an atheist." He said, "No, I am too, it's okay. I don't those books, you want them too." And then I was asking, how can you say to people, like, with a straight face, and he explained, like, similarly, that yeah, if you look at, our faith keeps developing until we see Krishna face to face. Actually, our faith is less than 100%. So that way, there's some portion of atheism, or like psychological atheism.
Yeah. Ishvaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. So who can say they are not? That's the demoniac, right? The demoniac are those who are trying to take Krishna out, but who can say they are not free from that tendency?
Thank you, Maharaj, for a nice class. I have two things. First, I have a clarification of the question. The transcendental atheist that you were mentioning seems kind of contradictory, because in Bhagavatam, the first verse says that Maya Pradapasha, like the Maya is conspicuous by its absence in the spiritual world. So how can we have transcendental growth in the spiritual world?
Yeah, I think atheist may be a strong word. Maybe a more suitable word is non-theist. Like, they don't try to deny God. But the point I'm making is that they're also deluded by Yoga Maya. So there's a sense in which Krishna is also hiding himself from them, just like Krishna is hiding himself from the materialists. But they're not an atheist in the sense that they're against God. The atheists of this world are against God. but they just don't really recognize Krishna's supremacy in that way.
I mean, still not convinced about it because, that Yogamaya influence about Krishna hiding his divinity and believing divinity, not knowing Krishna's divinity, is to enhance the pastimes.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that they are not, I mean, even when Mother Yashoda saw something wonderful in Krishna, she would call out Narayana. Right? So she's the supreme.
Yeah, therefore I said it's not that they're atheists because they're worshipping Narayan, but the point I'm making is in this verse, or in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking about how Maya covers. So in that sense, I'm saying they are also covered by Maya. They are covered.
Covered by Yoga Maya.
Yeah, Yoga Maya, yeah, that's the point, yeah. But they're still covered by Maya because it's...
right, we have to be covered.
Yeah.
That's the Shakti, we have to be united.
Right, yeah.
Okay. And second thing was that in the spiritual practice, I find the two most important qualities are sincerity and humility. But at the same time, as you said, the psychological atheist, we deprive ourselves of those qualities. So how can we just be sincere and be humble that we don't really fall trap and that yesterday's class we missed, but your title was how we defeat ourselves. So in defeating, self-defeating repetition of cycles, how can we come out of that? Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if you can force yourself to be sincere and force yourself to be humble, but what you can do is train yourself to act sincerely and train yourself to act humbly with the simultaneous inner desire to want to imbibe that sincerity and humility in its deepest way. I often give this definition. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Amritavani, he says humility means the complete absence of the enjoying spirit, which if you turn it around means humility is the complete presence of the service attitude in every moment. So maybe we can't be humble, but maybe what's more achievable is we can take the humble position by trying to in every situation be a servant. And if we take the humble position, then perhaps one day that humility will manifest very naturally within the heart. We're not sincere because we have many other desires, but maybe we can act sincerely in a particular situation to try to be conscious, to do things in the right way, with the right sensitivity, for the right goal, and in that way we show our sincerity, which then helps us to truly become sincere. So generally it's easier to work on our acts rather than our inner mindset. That's more difficult to shift. They say it's easier to act yourself into a new way of thinking than think yourself into a new way of acting. So generally, but that doesn't mean we don't think, that doesn't mean we don't internally cultivate a certain type of mood. But in our situation, we're focusing more on trying to engender the appropriate approach in our devotional service. Yes. Okay.
Hi, Krishna. I especially like your point about the psychological atheist, very kind of like self-examining. And it reminded me of this quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta.
Yes, please.
Really interesting. He says, to the extent that one disbelieves bhakti or devotion as denoted by kirtan or the holy name, in other words, those who think that all wants cannot be fulfilled by kirtan to that extent are such people atheistical. The degree of help one gives in the propagation of bhakti is denoted by kirtan as the sole measure of one's belief in God.
So how much one is surrendered to kirtan, the holy name, reveals actually their belief. Yeah. Chaitanya Charitamrita also says, Shraddha Shabde Vishvash Kohe Sudrida Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. On that definition of faith, that if I serve Krishna, I have the full conviction, the Vishvash, that Sarva Karma Krita Hoy, everything will be achieved. I don't need to do any subsidiary activities. That's a very high grade of faith. So yes, thank you. Very nice. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, Krishna Kripa Prabhu.
Thank you for so many nice points, including the 6 kinds of atheists. I think Vidananda Goswami wants to talk about the philosophical atheists.
Yeah.
How
psychological.
Yeah, sorry, psychological, and how they still put themselves in the center, even though they talk about how God is in the center.
Yeah.
Their own life, God is they just mind role. He quoted a nice verse that I wasn't aware of, stressing the importance of the Shastra, and it reminded me of a verse that I am aware of, but I think people don't quote enough, so I thought I would quote it.
Please.
And it's also in chapter 16, which I'm reviewing this month. So, Shastra Veda Uchuja, Bhagavate Kamakarta, Nasa Sudam, Bhakti, Sukana Paramati. One who abandons the introduction of Shastra and acts according to his own imagination doesn't obtain perfection, happiness, or the supreme destination.
Thank you, yes.
We were talking about the Maya Parityagana, and sometimes I talk to the students studying biology, and I talk to them about how complex the cell is, because there's like many hundreds of proteins, all of which have to be produced somehow or other and situated in the right, and make the point that it would be hard to show how such a complex arrangement could have, evolved.
Happened by chance, yeah.
And generally they're open to that idea, And as far as humility, Satsuma Maharaj sometimes talks about humility, and one of his takes on humility is that honesty is a precursor of humility, because actually we aren't that great. We're not really big entity. There's 7 billion people on the planet. We're only one of them. We're 1/10,000 tip of the hair buried in this huge mass of flesh. So the real position is that we really are small, and Krishna really is great. So the more we become honest about our actual situation, the more humble we'll actually become.
That's beautiful, yeah. One devotee used to say to me, if you're not perfect, then you should be humble. And he said, but the moment you're humble, you're perfect. So I like that, because, we look at ourselves and it's like, yes, so many imperfections. So if we're actually honest, then we have to be humble. But the moment we become humble and then we become dependent on Krishna and the Vaishnavas and stop trying to put ourselves up there as the perfect specimen, by that dependence, by that reliance, by that complete alignment with divine grace, one becomes perfect. Not by their own power, but by becoming fully dependent on Krishna. So yes, on humility and honesty. Thank you so much. Okay, I think there's nothing else. We can conclude here. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. Go on then, Narada Mani.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I just had a question regarding the point that Bhagavan brought up, which is so nice, a quick question about Islam, talking about the amount of faith that we have in kirtan and chanting the holy names is the opposite to the amount of faith or illusion that we're in, being covered by Maya. So I'm trying to understand, the more we gain faith through the holy name, sometimes I have that mentality where it's like, okay, well, if I just focus on Harinam on the other hand, sometimes things need to get done, and I'm focusing on chanting the holy name. So like, I'm trying to understand, maybe if you can help me understand how they're both synonymous with each other.
When you say getting things done, you mean
Like
practical stuff?
service, practical stuff.
Practical stuff. Okay. So in one sense we talk about relying on the holy name, but then we have services, we have responsibilities, and we feel like we also need to make a concerted effort to make it happen. So what does it mean to rely on the holy name when we're conducting all these services? And Krishna wants us to use our energy, Krishna wants us to use our intelligence, but Krishna also wants us to understand that that's not what's making it all work. There's that verse in the Gita, no, right? Like, while eating, moving, seeing, one realizes that they're not doing anything at all, right? There's some verse like that. 589, yeah. I'm terrible on numbers. 5? Which one? 5? 5, 18. 5, 8, and 9, yeah. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, breathing, always knows within himself that he does actually nothing at all. So in other words, one understands that there are three doers, that there's material nature, there's Krishna who is sanctioning everything, but one has to do their bit as one of those doers to basically utilize, because that's your offering of devotion. It's your offering of devotion to try to do the service nicely, but to rely on the holy name means that in that exertion of one's effort, one is realizing, if I don't have divine grace, if Krishna is not present, none of this is going to work. And so one always understands, they say, work as though everything depends on you, but then pray in the final analysis knowing that it all depends on Krishna. So in that sense, we exert, we endeavor, we make a great effort, but not with the mentality that kartaham iti manyate, but with the mentality that no, Ishvara Paramakrishna, Sarva Karana Karanam, he's the cause of it all. So yeah, I think it's that combining those things that kind of help.
Yeah.
Alright, thank you so much. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande.